Hello, and welcome to this renewal of Rocks 95. Gavin Stanford and Shelley Snob will no longer be a part of our station. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Wade Rivers, and with this renewal we also have a new name. Boyd's Eye News Network. Breaking lies, not stories. So without further delay. Live. From the FHQ station, welcome to Rocks 95. Since it's Hallowmas, it means it's spooky season once again. While you decorate your Halloween tree, what scary movie do you put on? Michael Myers? Friday the 13th? Nightmare on Elm Street? Oh, you poor normie bastard. I propose 2 horror films that should scare you. The Town That Dreaded Sundown and Zodiac starring Robert Downing Jr. Admittedly, the films are not really scary to themselves, unless you add the context of the killers being real serial killers. The movies become a tad bit scarier when you realize either of them have been caught. Please welcome my colleague and co-host, Virginia Slippery.
Thank you, Wade. In this video, we will be discussing the Phantom Killer, as well as the Lover's Lane Killer and the Zodiac. Viewer discretion is advised due to the graphic nature of the topics we will be discussing in this video. The topics include femcel culture, incel culture, murder, rape, mass shootings, and conspiracy. Trigger warning. Keep in mind, this video is for entertainment purposes only. Now that we have gotten the legal bureaucratic bull spit out of the way, let's first take a look at the Phantom Killer. The Phantom Killer, also known as the Texarkana Moonlight Murderer, was an unidentified assailant responsible for a string of brutal attacks in Texarkana, Texas, and Arkansas in 1946. Under the cover of night, the killer targeted young couples parked in remote areas, ambushing them with violent force. The attacks sparked a wave of fear and paranoia across the Twin Cities, with residents arming themselves and authorities scrambling to find the culprit. Despite a massive manhunt and multiple suspects, the Phantom Killer was never caught, leaving the case one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. The attacks not only claimed lives but also imprinted a lasting aura of terror on the community, inspiring books, films, and ongoing speculation about the identity of the enigmatic predator. In this video, we wish to discuss our evidence and speculation, but, for now, let's talk about the film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Directed by Charles B. Pierce, and starring Ben Johnson, Andrew Prine, and Dawn Wells. The Town That Dreaded Sundown is a docudrama-style horror film loosely based on the real-life 1946 Texarkana Moonlight murders, attributed to the unidentified Phantom Killer. The film opens with a chilling reenactment of the first attack on March 3, 1946, where a young couple is ambushed in their car by a hooded assailant. The narrative unfolds with a series of brutal attacks on couples in secluded areas, leading to widespread fear and paranoia in the community. As the town grapples with the terror, local law enforcement, including the fictionalized Captain J.D. Morales, Ben Johnson, are brought in to investigate. Despite their efforts, the killer remains elusive, and the film culminates in a tense and unresolved conclusion, mirroring the real-life unsolved nature of the case. The film is noted for its eerie atmosphere and effective use of suspense. The portrayal of the Phantom Killer, with his distinctive bag mask, has been recognized as an early influence on later horror icons. While the film takes creative liberties, such as the fictionalized trombone murder, it remains grounded in the core elements of the actual events. Critics have praised the film's ability to evoke a sense of dread in its documentary-style approach, which adds a layer of realism to the horror. However, some have pointed out that the film's pacing can be uneven, and certain character developments feel underexplored. Despite these critiques, The Town That Dreaded Sundown has garnered a cult following and is considered a noteworthy entry in the 1970s horror genre. The film's impact extended beyond its initial release. It was later referenced in the 2014 slasher film The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which serves as a meta-sequel. The original film's influence is evident in its portrayal of a faceless killer, and its blending of real-life events with fictional elements, setting a precedent for future horror films that draw inspiration from true crimes. We have agreed on the rating, 6.8 out of 10. Due to the fact that these films did not honor the victims of this horrible slayings but glorifying his evil actions. Because of the docudrama style this film is made in, took too many liberties with the tragedy. Instead of honoring the victims, it seemed more like a money grab than a way to tell what happened.
The cops had no idea how or why these murders took place, or who may have committed these atrocities, finding no clues to the identity of the killer. First, we need to look at the demographics of our Phantom Killer. We know the unsub would have had to been between the ages, estimated in 1946, 18 to 30 years old, based on physical ability, mobility, and behavioral indicators. Our unsub is male. All eyewitnesses describe a male assailant. Given the time period, we don't believe it would have been a trans man or a manly woman. The killer, average build, able to overpower or intimidate victims, and wore a white cloth or sack mask, indicating premeditation and awareness of the need to conceal identity. Next, we look at his behavior and modus operandi, or MO as we will be calling it from now on. We know he targeted young couples parked in secluded areas, often referred to as Lover's Lane. Keep that in mind, it will be important later. The killer approached victims quietly and unexpectedly, indicating stealth, patience, and timing. The murder weapons used were blunt force or firearms in at least one attack. He demonstrated opportunistic aggression, striking quickly and retreating to avoid capture. Witnesses reported a dark sedan, suggesting mobility and ability to leave the scene quickly. As for his personality traits? Well, details from the crime itself can shed light on him. The unsub, like most serial killers, was control-oriented, meaning he needed to dominate situations and exert power over victims. Much like the BTK killer and Ed Kemper, control was a necessity for the Phantom, not only for his own safety, but a deep gratification. The Moonlight murderer's lack of capture and ability to move through the community unnoticed suggests someone not tightly monitored or socially integrated. This means he possibly socially isolated, having no connections to the town aside from maybe work. Given the vehicle spotted near these killings, we can safely rule out the possibility of the killer being a truck driver. He chose secluded locations and night hours, balancing opportunity and risk. Potential resentment or rage toward romantic couples indicates possible jealousy, inadequacy, or anger at perceived societal privileges. Similar with incel or femcel culture. An incel is typically a person, mostly male, though not exclusively, femcel, who desires romantic or sexual relationships but is unable to find a partner despite wanting one. The term originated in the 1990s as a neutral descriptor for involuntary celibacy, but its online communities evolved into subcultures with toxic dynamics. Gee, I wonder why nobody wants to be with you. Because you are toxic, and nobody likes a toxic person, no matter how big that pickle is.
The Phantom Killer was likely well acquainted with Texarkana's rural and semi-urban landscape. This familiarity suggests he may have worked as a door-to-door salesman, a profession that required an intimate knowledge of local neighborhoods and suburban layouts to succeed. Such a job would have provided him with both mobility and anonymity, allowing him to move through different areas without raising suspicion. His ability to carry out multiple attacks across varied locations, and escape despite witnesses reporting a vehicle, indicates a deep understanding of the terrain and local routes. It's also possible he held a position that permitted nighttime travel or unmonitored movement, such as delivery work, sales, or certain forms of manual labor. While long-haul trucking might appear plausible at first glance, the occupation wasn't yet widespread in the mid-1940s, making it unlikely that the Phantom was a truck driver. Instead, he was probably a locally based traveler, using his profession as both a cover and a means to scout potential victims. Manual laborers of the time often worked long, grueling hours and dressed in rough or dirty clothing. The Phantom was able to approach couples without alarming them, something more in line with someone who appeared respectable or familiar, such as a salesman or serviceman. Manual laborers often lacked personal vehicles suitable for long, quiet nighttime travel. The Phantom had access to a dark-colored sedan, consistent with middle-class or professional ownership rather than blue-collar work vehicles like trucks or farm equipment. The Moonlight murderer's final unaliving occurred May 1946. Or did it? Enter the Lover's Lane Killer.
The Lover's Lane killings have not been officially connected by law enforcement. However, based on our research, we believe there may be links not only between these cases but also to the Phantom Killer. First, let's look at his crimes as well as MO. The slayings from the Lover's Lane Killer occurred across Arkansas, Texas, California, Oklahoma, and Colorado, and their widespread nature suggests a mobile offender, as previously discussed in connection to the Moonlight murders. Between 1950 and 1968, a series of brutal slayings took place in smaller towns along US 67, US 80, and Interstate 20. The killer's MO and methods of escape are eerily consistent. The police faced many double homicides of couples in parked cars, many still unsolved to this day. Victims were often found shot with a .32 or .38 caliber handgun, or beaten to death, mirroring the violence seen in both the Texarkana Phantom and the later Zodiac Killer cases. What at first might seem like coincidence grows harder to dismiss when considering the repeated reports of a dark sedan leaving multiple crime scenes. In several accounts, the assailant wore a hood or mask, once again reflecting the signature image of the Moonlight murderer. These recurring elements, the weapon types, the vehicle, the attack locations, and the hooded figure, suggest that the same individual or a close imitator could have been responsible for multiple Lover's Lane slayings spanning nearly 2 decades and thousands of miles. Kinda fucked up, isn't it?
Jesus Christ. It's truly fucked. Anyway, let's make a physical and psychological profile. Let's start with his physical profile. The Lover's Lane Killer is believed to be male, Caucasian. The killer is estimated between 25 to 40 during the time of these crimes. Possibly a traveling worker, such as a door-to-door salesman, deliveryman, or low-level serviceman. Now, his psychological profile. His ability to navigate suburban and rural layouts indicates familiarity with multiple towns and road systems. Average to above-average intelligence, likely a high school graduate, possibly with vocational or sales training. The killer likely lived alone or had minimal social connections. However, his stalking and timing demonstrate patience and an ability to blend in. He likely observed couples for patterns before striking. His targeting of couples in intimate settings suggests deep-seated envy and anger toward romantic or sexual relationships, a psychological hallmark later reflected in incel or femcel-type violence. The unsub may have felt socially or sexually rejected, projecting that resentment onto his victims. Such as the case of Elliot Rogers, or Audrey Hale, aka Aiden Hale. Each attack carried a ritualistic element: isolation, confrontation, humiliation, and execution. These indicate a need for dominance and power rather than impulsive rage. The victim's vulnerability amplified his feeling of control. The unsub operated in secluded yet public enough areas to instill community fear without risking immediate capture. His confidence in evading detection suggests a practiced method or a prior criminal pattern: peeping, stalking, animal cruelty, etc. May have experienced sexual gratification through power dynamics, fear, and domination, though not necessarily through overt sexual assault. Violence itself may have served as a surrogate for sexual release. Thus brings us to the Zodiac Killer.
While the Lover's Lane killings appeared to fade out by 1978, their echoes can be heard in the crimes attributed to one of America's most infamous murderers, the Zodiac. Like the Phantom and the unidentified assailant along US 67 and I-20, the Zodiac targeted isolated couples, often striking in semi-rural or secluded areas. Unlike his predecessors, the Zodiac made his presence known through cryptic symbols, coded letters, and taunting communications, transforming random acts of violence into a psychological war with the public. We'll circle back to the Lover's Lane murders shortly, but for now, the path forward leads us directly into Northern California, and into the mind of the man, or perhaps the creature, known as Zodiac. The parallels, in these cases, are difficult to ignore: a hooded figure, a preference for young couples in cars, and the use of small-caliber handguns. Each case reveals a meticulous understanding of timing, terrain, and fear, traits suggesting not a drifter, but a traveler, calculated, adaptable individual comfortable with movement and manipulation. On December 20, 1968, Lake Herman Road, Benicia, California. David Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, were parked on a remote Lover's Lane area along Lake Herman Road. The killer shot both of them with a .22 caliber weapon. David Faraday was shot once in the head at close range. He died instantly. Betty Lou Jensen was shot 5 times in the back as she fled. There were no witnesses, and the killer left no clear motive or physical evidence. Police initially suspected a local assailant, but the crime remained unsolved. This would later be recognized as the first confirmed Zodiac attack. The letters, 3 nearly identical typed or handwritten letters, were sent to the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Each of the 3 letters claimed responsibility for both shootings and contained 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram, which the killer demanded be printed on the front page of each newspaper. In the letters, he threatened to commit further murders if his code was not published, signing each one with a distinctive crosshair symbol, a circle with a cross through it, that would soon become the infamous Zodiac insignia. The first Zodiac cipher, known as the 408 cipher, was solved just a week after its publication in August 1969. A high school teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty Hardin from Salinas, California, cracked it using logical substitution and pattern analysis. They noticed common English language structures like I and kill repeating and deduced the cipher's basic construction without computers, a remarkable feat for amateur cryptographers at the time. When decoded, the message revealed the killer's twisted philosophy rather than his identity. It began, "I like killing people because it is so much fun," describing murder as the most thrilling experience and comparing it to hunting wild game. He wrote that humans were the most dangerous animal of all, a chilling reflection of his self-proclaimed role as a predator of man.
I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise. All those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife.
However, the cipher ended without a name or direct clue to his identity. The Zodiac taunted police by claiming the cipher contained his name, but it didn't. The final 18 letters were gibberish, possibly a deliberate red herring or an unsolved secondary code. This first cipher set the tone for the Zodiac's communication style, part confession, part challenge, and part psychological warfare.
The Zodiac's second major cipher, known as the 340 cipher, remained unsolved for over 50 years, until it was finally cracked in December 2020 by a team of codebreakers: David Orenchak, a U.S. software developer, Jarl van Eyck, a Belgian computer programmer, and Sam Blake, an Australian mathematician. They used custom software and pattern recognition to decode the message. 5 decades to solve this. The message, though eerie and cryptic, gave no clues to his identity. It reaffirmed Zodiac's obsession with paradise, his word for an afterlife where victims became his slaves, and mocked authorities for their failure to catch him, consistent with his egotistical, taunting tone throughout his letters.
I hope you're having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life, will be an easy one in Paradise Death.
That's exactly the decoded text of the Zodiac Killer's 340 cipher, just as the code-breaking team confirmed in 2020. It's one of the most chilling of all his messages, cold, self-assured, and written with the same deliberate misspellings and strange phrasing he used elsewhere. In this message, the Zodiac dismisses a recent TV appearance where someone falsely claimed to be him, reasserts his identity, and expresses a disturbing belief that his victims would serve him as slaves in the afterlife he calls paradise. The repeated misspelling of paradise and the cyclical phrasing of life, death reinforce his obsession with control, immortality, and superiority, a pattern consistent with narcissistic and delusional traits seen in many serial offenders. Across decades and states, the Phantom Killer of Texarkana, the scattered Lovers Lane murders, and the Zodiac Killer share unnerving similarities in their choice of victims. All three targeted young couples in isolated or semi-secluded areas, often parked in cars at night. This focus on vulnerable, intimate settings suggests a deep-seated resentment toward relationships and a preference for power and control over those caught off guard, rather than random acts of violence. The modus operandi across these cases is equally striking. Each killer frequently used small-caliber handguns or blunt force to execute their attacks, and witnesses often reported a dark-colored sedan fleeing the scenes. Additionally, both the Phantom Killer and the Lovers Lane assailant were observed wearing hooded disguises or sack masks, while the Zodiac occasionally employed concealment and deception, demonstrating a consistent theme of hiding identity and creating terror. Geographically, there's a pattern that cannot be ignored. The Phantom Killer struck in Texarkana, Texas and Arkansas, while the Lovers Lane killings spanned Arkansas, Texas, California, Oklahoma, and Colorado, and the Zodiac terrorized Northern California. While not definitively linked, the corridors along US 67, US 80, and I-20 could have allowed a mobile offender to operate across multiple states with relative ease, suggesting a killer with both mobility and intimate knowledge of small towns and rural areas. Psychologically, all three offenders demonstrate traits reminiscent of modern proto-incel behavior: social isolation, jealousy or rage toward couples, and a need for psychological domination. The Zodiac, in particular, taunted authorities with letters and cryptograms, while the earlier killers exhibited less verbal arrogance but maintained the same cold, calculated method of attacking intimate pairs. When lined up side by side, these cases reveal a pattern of predation, opportunism, and obsession with secrecy, a terrifying coincidence that continues to intrigue both investigators and criminal psychologists.
Unlike the first two letters, the third Zodiac letter remains unsolved to this day. Despite decades of investigation, amateur codebreakers, and modern cryptographic analysis, the message continues to resist interpretation. Its meaning, whether a threat, confession, or taunt, is still unknown, leaving a lingering mystery and reinforcing the Zodiac's reputation as a master of psychological manipulation and terror. The unsolved cipher serves as a chilling reminder that, even decades later, parts of his twisted mind remain beyond our reach. The true crime film based off the Zodiac killings was released in 2006. Titled Zodiac. Zodiac is a tense, meticulously detailed thriller, directed by David Fincher, and stars Robert Downing Jr. and Jake Gyllenhaal. The film follows the real-life investigation of the Zodiac Killer. The film centers on a cartoonist, a reporter, and a pair of detectives as they attempt to piece together the killer's cryptic letters, ciphers, and murders, all while the case increasingly consumes their lives. The movie captures the obsession, paranoia, and frustration of trying to catch an unseen predator, blending procedural investigation with psychological depth. We rate this film 7 out of 10. Someone fell asleep while watching it twice. It was me. I fell asleep, but third time was the charm. Watched it all the way through then. Anyway, the film is a gripping, atmospheric portrayal of obsession and terror, though its slow pace and open-ended conclusion may leave some viewers craving more resolution. The slow burn is why I fell asleep honestly. As we approach the end, it is time now for our agreed-upon theory. Please, if you dislike our theory, don't threaten us. Simply put, we don't negotiate with terrorists. I propose this. If the Texarkana Phantom Killer was the right age in 1946, he could be responsible for all 3 series of killings: the Moonlight murders, the Lover's Lane slayings, and the Zodiac killings. The similarities in victims, MO, and vehicle descriptions are too striking to ignore. Each struck young couples in secluded areas, used small-caliber guns or blunt force, and fled in a dark sedan. He had the mobility and knowledge to strike across multiple states: Texas, Arkansas, California, Oklahoma, Colorado, moving along US 67, US 80, and I-20. A transient job, perhaps door-to-door sales, would have allowed him unmonitored travel at night and familiarity with the towns he terrorized. Psychologically, all 3 killers share the same pattern: social isolation, jealousy or rage toward couples, and a need to control and instill fear. The Zodiac's letters only amplified this obsession. Disguises, stealth, and calculated escapes tied the cases together in a chilling portrait of a killer who knew exactly what he was doing. In the end, while we may never have definitive proof, the alignment of age, opportunity, MO, and psychology makes it plausible, terrifyingly plausible, that the Phantom Killer could be the same person behind all 3 series of murders. Across decades and states, a single long-range mobile offender may have left a legacy of fear that still haunts us today. I'm Wade Rivers.
And I'm Virginia Slippery, on behalf of everyone here at the FAHQ station, as well as Jim Mason and the rest of Void's Light Fellowship. Have a nice night. But remember, be kind and rewind.